Some of the work is going to be through what we do in terms of giving benefits and assistance to state and local governments around transit dollars and looking holistically at the connection between that and housing and looking holistically at the incentives we in the federal government can create for local and state governments to actually engage in planning in a holistic manner that includes prioritizing affordable housing for working people.
At this point, you got to be asking yourself, is Kamala Harris trolling us? Because in this new interview, solo, by the way, with MSNBC anchor Stephanie Ruhle, she just continues to bomb these interviews in a humiliating fashion. Now, before we get to the clips, let me ask you a question. What are we expecting from Kamala Harris, especially if you are an undecided voter? This is what it is.
With Kamala is we don't know her answer to anything, okay?
But you know his answer to everything.
And that's why I would never vote for him, and people shouldn't vote for him. But people also are expected to have some idea of what the program is of the person you're supposed to vote for. You're just not supposed to say, well, you have to vote for Y because X is this, that, and the other. Let's find out a little bit more. And I don't think it's a lot to ask her to sit down for a real interview as opposed to a puff piece in which she describes like her feelings of growing up in Oakland with nice lawns.
Now, this gentleman, he's not voting for Trump. We already saw this clip previously, but it's what we all are wanting from her. Can she give us a clear idea of what she plans to do? Now, I don't know if Stephanie Ruhle knew when she was sitting there that she was going to interview Kamala Harris. Let's act like she didn't know. I kind of think she did. But the bottom line is she's operating from the position that she doesn't need to answer any questions, which is very funny because towards the end of the video, I'm going to give you Stephanie Ruhle's reaction to how the interview went, and you'll be shocked at what she said. But let's start with the first clip, which is on one of her signature economic policies, price control.
Prices are still high.
Yeah, I agree with you.
You said you want to take this on by going after those who engage in price gouging.
Yeah.
But as somebody who supports free markets, who's a capitalist, how do you go after price gouging without implementing price controls? Because once we get in this zone, people start to get worried and they say, I don't know what she stands for.
So just to be very frank, I am never going to apologize for going after companies and corporations that take advantage of the desperation of the American people. And as Attorney General, I saw this happen. In the midst of an emergency, whether it be an extreme weather event or even the pandemic, we saw it, where those few companies, not the majority, not most, but those few companies that would take advantage of the desperation of people and jack up prices. Yeah, I'm going to go after them. Yes, I'm going to go after them. And that is part of a much more comprehensive plan on what we can do to bring down the cost of living, including housing, including the everyday needs of the American people.
So let me get this straight. As president, you're going to do something that maybe an attorney general of a state should be focused on. That's what you're telling me, right? If I take you at your word, why would the president of the United States be so concerned with something that only a few companies are doing? Her words, by the way, her words. And how does that actually impact the price of lumber, the price of fuel, the price of rent? That's got nothing to do with those sectors. So to blend that is very misleading to people who are listening to this. Very misleading.
But how do you find that line to make sure corporations are paying their fair? But how do you find that line to make sure corporations are paying their fair share, but they're not leaving our country?
Well, listen, I work with a lot of CEOs. I have spent a lot of time with CEOs, and I'm going to tell you that the business leaders who are actually part of the engine of America's economy agree that people should pay their fair share. They also agree that when we look at a plan such as mine that is about investing in the middle class, investing in new industries, investing in bringing down costs, invest in entrepreneurs like small businesses, that the overall economy is stronger and everyone benefits.
So my question to you, Kamala Harris, Madam Vice President, who decides what the fair share is? Who gets to decide what fair share means? Progressive hacks from your Democratic Party? The American people? Who is deciding what is fair to Americans. And based on your track record, I don't believe you know what's best for Americans because of what you've done over the last 3.5 years. Talk about corporations getting greedy. You guys have been greedy. When you spend billions and billions of dollars to build only 8 electric vehicle charging stations that you were in charge of, where'd all that money go? Where's all the money going for all this illegal migrants coming into our country? Because it's being funneled somewhere. So I find it funny that she's using this, even though those same CEOs know they're not going to do anything about this because Congress has to approve this. They're not going to do anything. And that speaks to her empty policies that people know aren't ever going to happen, are not rooted in reality. And that's why she didn't get the Teamsters endorsement. Here's her reaction to that.
But not all unions have gotten behind you. I want to understand, when the Teamsters decided not to endorse you, what was their reasoning? What are they looking for?
Well, let me go back to our just previous conversation. I'm very proud to have the endorsement of the steelworkers and almost every other major union in America, because I stand by workers and I stand by the importance of being able to join a union and to understand the benefit and the value of unions. And I understand the importance of investing in new industries and working actively with the private sector to grow our economy.
But I'm asking because there's this idea we want something more from her. What is it?
Well, here's the thing, that back to your point about previous election cycles, Donald Trump made a whole lot of promises that he did not meet, and one would argue broke.
And she just continues to ramble on about Donald Trump. Never answers the question about the historic announcement from the Teamsters to not endorse any candidate. I mean, the Teamsters haven't done something like that in decades. They normally would endorse Democrats, of course, and they didn't. So what does that say about her as a candidate? Or what does that say about where the Democratic Party is today? Now, the other historic thing is the damage that she did on the border. And you just scratch your head when you hear what she has to say about immigration. Watch this.
Communities around the country that have legal immigration, many have said we're at capacity. And many feel like the government has said to them, well, adapt, sit down, be quiet. This is how it is. What would a Harris administration do for those communities who've taken in many, many legal immigrants but are at capacity?
Well, first of all, we do have a broken immigration system, and it needs to be fixed. And if we take a step back, months ago, some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress came together with others, proposed a border security bill that would have put 1,500 new border agents on the border to help those hardworking border agents who are there right now working around the clock, would have put more money into stemming the flow of fentanyl, which is killing Americans around our country and devastating communities, would have put more resources into our ability to prosecute transnational criminal organizations, which in my career I've prosecuted. Donald Trump got word of the bill, realized it was going to fix a problem he wanted to run on, and told him to kill the bill, don't put it up for a vote. He killed a bill that would have actually been a solution because he wants to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And that's part of what needs to be addressed. And my pledge is that when elected president, if the American people will have me, I will bring that bill back and I will sign it into law. And we need a comprehensive plan that includes what we need to do to fortify not only our border, but deal with the fact that we also need to create pathways for people to earn citizenship.
So you can get them to vote in elections. Yeah, we know that. Let's go back to this because I feel like we talk about this every single time with her. And this ridiculous response, she didn't even answer the question, of course. She has no message for those communities who have been obviously devastated because of the influx of migrants, whether it's legal or illegal. I don't care. It's obviously had a net negative on our communities because you just can't take that amount of people in one swoop. So the first problem is they could have shut down the border at any point. So when you go out there and you're like, well, yeah, this bill would have definitely helped out these Border Patrol agents that work around the clock. We care so much about them. If you care so much about them, why didn't you close the border 2 years ago, 3 years ago at least? Why would you put that amount of stress on them to begin with? You know fentanyl is a problem in our country. Why would you not close the border? Why are you guys waiting until 2024 to do something? And let's not forget to mention, 14 Democrats voted against that bill. Some famous person by the name of Bernie Sanders was one of those 14, by the way. And finally, the biggest thing that I heard in all of this, which is a bunch of bull, is her acknowledgement that she knows the system is broken. Why does she know that we have a broken immigration system? Because she's part of the problem. She broke it even more. So if Joe Biden was accurate in saying that he delegated a lot of foreign and domestic policy responsibilities to Kamala Harris, then we see what the results are, which speaks to why she's not the best at making decisions. Watch this.
Probably the biggest gut decision I've made most recently is to choose my running mate. Yeah. There were lots of good, incredible candidates. And ultimately, that came down to a gut decision.
Yeah, that really sums up her decision-making skills. That her gut decision was to choose Tim Walz as her running mate. Interesting. Out of all of the choices that were available to her, she chose Tim Tampon Stolen Valor Walz. You just can't make this stuff up. And it seems that when she tries to make up what she's going to say, it obviously never goes according to plan. Watch this.
Madam Vice President, you just laid out your economic vision for the future.
Yeah.
But still, there are lots of Americans who don't see themselves in your plans. For those who say these policies aren't for me, what do you say to them?
Well, if you are hardworking, if you have the dreams and the ambitions and the aspirations of what I believe you do, you're in my plan. You know, I have to tell you, I really love and am so energized by what I know to be the spirit and character of the American people. We have ambition. We have aspirations. We have dreams. We can see what's possible. We have an incredible work ethic. But not everyone has the access to the opportunities that allow them to achieve those things. But we don't lack for those things. But not everyone, you know, gets handed stuff on a silver platter. And so my vision for the economy, I call it an opportunity economy, is about making sure that all Americans, wherever they start, wherever they are, have the ability to actually achieve those dreams and those ambitions, which include, for middle-class families, just being able to know that their hard work allows them to get ahead, right? I think we can't and we shouldn't aspire to have an economy that just allows people to get by. People want to do more than just get by. They want to get ahead.
Okay, so silver platter, right? Speaking of that, weren't you handed the nomination for the Democratic Party to become president? Wasn't that handed to you on a silver platter? You didn't even have to compete for that. You didn't even have to do a debate for that. You didn't even have to campaign for it. They gave it to you. So when you talk about silver platters, probably shouldn't do that. The second thing, didn't Willie Brown serve you up a nice career on a silver platter? You know, I just find like the audacity of Kamala Harris to say things like that as if it's an indictment that Trump had a successful father. Oh, it's a bad thing that his father happened to be successful. Oh, okay, so we should punish him for that. I mean, it just doesn't make sense, and it speaks to what's wrong with this country, where they want to punish people for being successful because they think that every single person is a victim and that they don't have access to opportunity. Every day is an opportunity. Right now is an opportunity. There's no shortage of opportunities in America. That's why more people want to come to this country than any other country, and it's not close. Why? Because there's an abundance here. The problem with the Democratic Party is they're so focused on lack, but in a way for them to control everything. That's not going to work. Listen, I know what it's like to be born in a situation that is not ideal. Both of my parents are drug addicts, okay? I ended up having to be adopted. I was raised by a single parent. I went to the military. I had to figure out how to be a man all on my own. I had to learn some very hard lessons, but I would never, ever once try to go back and redo anything because that's what makes life so special. I don't need a handout. I don't need you to manufacture opportunities. They're always here for the person who's ready to commit themselves. And what's even more troubling is they don't even have that mindset for the illegals that they're letting into this country. They don't even put up a resistance. They don't even make them earn it. They just let them walk right across the border. Okay, so I'm done with this interview, but let's get to what Stephanie Ruhle had to say, which I thought, again, is crazy. And I have some nice words for her, too.
Here's what's a little tricky. She doesn't answer the question around if the GOP is controlling the Senate, if she can't raise corporate taxes, where is she going to get the money from, to expand the child tax credit and do all the things she wants to do? And she says, we just have to do it.
No, she's right. Kamala Harris didn't answer any questions. But before we get ahead of ourselves and say, thank you, Stephanie, for being honest about your interview. Oh, she switches up and goes into cover mode for Kamala Harris. Watch this.
Work, and one could watch that and say, well, she didn't give a clear, direct answer. That's okay, because we are not talking about clear or direct issues.
Oh, okay. So I guess it is okay to not answer any questions that are clearly important to undecided voters. And these were not complex questions or nerdy questions or in the weeds type of questions. These were just, can you explain to me your point A to point B? Just the bottom line. Yeah, I guess it's not okay to answer questions like that. Now, before we wrap up this video, if you've been getting a lot of value from this, make sure you do me a solid, like, share, and subscribe to this channel. If you want to support this channel in a meaningful way, go to the link in the description, grab yourself a t-shirt or buy us a cup of coffee. Now, here are my final points. Number one, Stephanie Ruhle, she should be fired. I know that's an inflammatory thing to say. It might be divisive, but you know what? You're interviewing someone who could potentially be the next president of the United States, and those are the questions you ask her. No follow-up, no pushback, no fact check, nothing. But let me take a step back and be real here. I knew Stephanie Ruhle was going to do that. I know that. I'm not even upset about it. Because you know what? It doesn't even matter at this point. I don't know if Kamala Harris is trolling us or what, but she doesn't even need a hard interview because even the easy interviews she screws up on. The second thing I notice is we get what the message is today. It's, I'm going to save you. I'm going to make sure everybody has the same opportunity. Doesn't matter where you are. What does that sound like to you guys? Sounds like socialism. The government is going to pay for everything. It's going to make sure everybody is starting at the same place. And if they don't start at the same place, they'll end up at the same place. These are her words, by the way. That is a bunch of bull. The final thing is this, and it's become very clear to me. If I was an undecided voter and I hated Trump, which again, I don't, this is, hypothetically here, and I hated Trump, man, I'd feel really bad for you because you hate Trump, but Kamala Harris can never say anything of clarity for you. She can't answer any questions that you have. She doesn't give you any confidence whatsoever that she's going to be better than Joe Biden. So what do you do at that point? I mean, I think, again, undecided voters, they'll just sit out or they're going to vote third party and maybe some of them will vote Trump. And you just have to scratch your head because you think, lady, you had time to prepare for this interview. Clearly, you can memorize stuff, which we saw at the debate. This is the best you can do? It's just a disaster. That's my opinion. What about you guys? What do you guys think about this interview? It wasn't even a live interview, by the way. They did tape it. What do you think about Stephanie Ruhle and the questions that she asked? What do you think about Kamala Harris and the way that she answered the questions? Why don't you leave everything you think about this interview in the comments section below. Thank you for checking out the video today. Stay grateful, stay focused, and stay true. Peace.